much for joining me this morning. I am saying it right, Darcy?
Yep, you got
Okay,
it.
I just gotta make sure because some people's names are strange and they have a weird pronunciation or it's German and I don't know, you gotta say it differently. But thank you so much for joining me. It looks like you guys are on the road right now, huh?
We are on the road. Yep, we're in West Virginia right now.
Are you guys making any kind of particular trek or just out enjoying what we have to
Um,
offer?
yeah, mainly just out here kayaking. So we've been hunkered down in Colorado since March, and this is our first real outing into the world. And we loaded up the van. We're pretty self-contained, so we felt pretty good about traveling in the time of coronavirus in this fashion. So.
Right.
And plus, like in West Virginia and a couple other states out here, there's river releases in the fall, so kind of
Mm-hmm.
guaranteed flows for rivers. So it's a good time to
Nice.
be here.
Yeah, no kidding. Is it like one of those Sprinter vans or what kind of deal do
It's
you
a
have going on?
Ford Transit, actually.
And is that just all fully contained, got bunks, or is it more rustic or camping out in camp in tents and whatnot on a nightly basis?
No, like we made it into a camper van. So there's got a bed, there's like a kitchen.
Nice.
Yeah, so we just traveled out here with a ton of food. And obviously we have to stop at gas stations, but that's been like our main exposure. So
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I was actually just looking at a tent because I was going hunting and then I just gotten back from the beach, but I wanted something that I could travel with. And at first I was looking at like renting an RV until I realized that apparently pandemics are great business tools for RVs companies because
Yes.
all of them are rented out or sold or what have you. Like there was just no RVs available whatsoever. And
Yeah, it
so,
would have been a smart time to start an RV rental business.
yeah, no kidding. I didn't even know they had like an Airbnb for RVs, but apparently they do, and you can rent other people's. And so then I was looking for, you've probably seen them before, like the tents that fit in the bed of a truck, and then you just strap them down to the side of the truck and like the wheel wells and stuff. So I've been looking at those because I feel like it's just the most practical way to do it. And if I can get a 4-wheel drive truck there, well, then we're good to go.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, that's awesome. I hope you guys have a great time doing that. And I think
thanks.
I'm pretty jealous that I have to sit here in Texas while you guys get to go do that.
Yeah, it honestly has been a nice little escape from what the last 7 months have been.
Yeah, no kidding. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you from your book and from your travels, but tell the audience what exactly you've done and what you're out here promoting.
All right. So yeah, my name's Darcy Gaechter, and I've been kayaking for 23 years. And sort of my biggest kayaking accomplishment and what I wrote my book about was kayaking the Amazon River from source to sea. And my team, it was me, Don Beveridge, and David Midgley, and we were the first team to do the whole thing in kayaks. So like 9 people had descended the Amazon before us, but they had all either hiked around or rafted down the whitewater section. So we did the whole thing in kayaks, and I became the first woman to do Amazon source to sea. And yeah, wow. The reason I wrote the book, like the kind of the message I want to promote is like I'm short and skinny and pretty puny looking, and always when people look at me, they definitely don't assume that I could be good at any sports, or especially not kayaking, or do something like kayak the Amazon. And so, yeah, just trying to spread the message of like not letting other people's judgments or their fears affect your decisions or change the way you look at life and tackle things.
No, that's a great message, and that's definitely a it almost seems like like how there's always that what is it called? Not the rule, the exception to the rule always seems to be with people like you that are, perhaps you maybe look a little bit scrawnier, a little skinnier or something, but then you're like the most beastly athlete that can handle everything. You remind me a lot of the ultramarathon runner, Courtney DeWalter, where she's awesome. So unassuming. And yet she's out there 400 miles running half blind in one eye. And because then on the other side of the spectrum, you get like the super rah-rah motivating guy, like a David Goggins or something, who's always about, staying hard, and he looks jacked and he's ripped up, and he's a Navy SEAL, this and that. And it's like, well, it's really hard to relate with you, man. Like I'm not you, but for the person that, you know, might look at some of those, you know, things like rafting down the Amazon or kayaking down the Amazon, like that's, it's not an easy task by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I contacted you about doing this, want to talk with you about grit, because I'm sure, you know, part of it is obviously going to be your skill level, right? You've been kayaking for, you said 23 years, 22 years?
23 years, yeah.
23 years. So, you know, obviously you have a ton of skill. So for the newbies that's listening, it's like, I want to go be like Darcy. No, just slow your roll, because I got jacked up on the Guadalupe River here in Texas, floating it on an inner tube. Okay, so you're not ready for an Amazon trip just yet. It does take a lot of skill. But behind that as well, and I'm sure you can attest to even developing that skill, is a certain amount of perseverance and drive and determination to go out and do that thing, right?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, yeah, both sides of the coin, like you're talking on the Amazon trip itself. So the whole trip was 148 days long, and the whitewater was only 25 of those days. And so in a lot of ways, you know, the whitewater was probably the physically most demanding and kind of some of the scariest, but in a way it was kind of the easiest part of the trip, because that's what I'm used to. You know, whitewater kayaking is what I do for work and for fun. And so that's just like normal for me. But it was kind of after the whitewater ended when we really got into the grind. And, you know, I had never done an expedition that long before. And just finding ways to keep a positive mental outlook for 148 days when, you know, you're uncomfortable, you're bored, you're tired, you know, that was the most challenging part for me, for sure.
And you had how many other people with you when you were going down?
There was 3 of us total.
Three total.
Me and David and Dawn.
Okay. And I assume you guys are all sitting in, right? Not on top? Inside
Correct.
kayak? Okay.
Yeah, so we had whitewater kayaks for the whitewater portion, and then we switched to sea kayaks for the rest of it. But yeah, all of them were sitting inside, like with a spray skirt.
When you do that, is it just something that you have like in tow with you, that when you switch out kayaks, or how does that work?
No, so that was another thing about this expedition, where the logistics were totally mind-blowing. And so yeah, one of the big logistical hurdles was getting the sea kayaks, number 1, imported into Peru, and then number 2, delivered to basically the closest town we could find to where the whitewater ended and the flatwater began. But so yeah, we just set off from the beginning with our whitewater boats, and then had the sea kayaks delivered for us at this town called Puerto N.A., where the flatwater began.
Yeah. Now you mentioned Peru, and I don't know if anyone knows exactly what route we were taking, but where did you start and where did you end at?
So we started on the Montaro River, which is in the Andes Mountains, just a few hours from Lima, actually. And so from basically 1950 until 2012, the whole geographical world believed that the Apurimac River was the source of the Amazon. But about 6 months before we started our expedition, a guy named Rocky Contos discovered that the Montaro River was 47 miles longer. So we kind of switched course, switched plans, and started on the Montaro. And it was at 15,000 feet in elevation where we started. Not really near any towns, but we started at a lake called Lago Acucocha. And then we finished the expedition at the Atlantic Ocean in Brazil. Okay.
Wow. That's, I mentioned you, I grew up, excuse me, I grew up in Latin America. And so I know some of the areas I've at least been in the Amazon myself. I've been in the jungle and on the river, and it's definitely it's a wild place, and in all senses, in all uses of that word, wild. Not only the habitat, but the animals, everything out there is just, it's crazy. And I can only imagine how beautiful of scenery it gives you. But it's also, I mean, there's some dangers out there too that you got to deal with as you're floating along. What did you guys pack food with you? Because you said 140 some odd days, right? So was it packed food, or did you coordinate that with the logistic points that you did?
So we had a little bit of everything. We all brought 50 days worth of dehydrated meals.
Okay.
And so we'd eat 1 dehydrated meal for breakfast, 1 for dinner, and then have some snacks for lunch during the day. And during the whitewater sections, there was intermittent road access. So we would basically box up a bunch of food and give it to give it to some Peruvian guy and say, meet us in 8 days at these GPS coordinates. Just give him the coordinates to where we saw a bridge. So that's what we did for the whitewater section. In the flat water, for the first bit, we had a motorized canoe coming with us. So the beginning of the flat water is also the beginning of a region that Peru calls the red zone. And it's just pretty dangerous and volatile for a variety of reasons. But we thought if we had a local guy in a canoe kind of coming along with us, that he could help ease any uncomfortable situations. And so he carried our food while he was with us. And then eventually we had a bigger support boat when we got further down the river, but also by that point, there's so many towns and villages that we didn't really have to carry a ton of food. We could resupply every couple days at various towns that we'd get to.
Yeah. And you were saying, like you're, a little scrawnier, a little tinier than what someone might perceive as this. When you're going through this, I'm sure you're burning a ton of calories. With your dehydrated meals, is it like a meal prep dehydration, or is it more like a standard dehydrated, like MRE type meal that you would get, or is it specific for like what your needs are going to be?
Well, so I further complicate things by being a vegan, so that definitely limits the choices. But Backpackers Pantry makes 5 different vegan dehydrated meals.
Okay.
And that's awesome that they make 5, but it still wasn't like the best variety when you're eating 2 a day for 50 days. But a couple of them were some of Backpackers Pantry's highest calorie meals.
Yeah.
So I would try to go for the ones that were like 1,000 calories each. But still, so that's 2,000 calories a day plus a little bit of snacks. And we definitely were always hungry and always not quite getting enough food.
Was it, is that basically, I would imagine with that many calories, is it very carb heavy?
It is. And their highest one is like, it comes with little packets of peanut butter that you stick in there. Okay, it's like a peanut sauce flavored thing. So I think the peanut butter really helps. Peanut butter, rice.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
I know I've had with the Army's MREs, they had like a peanut butter spread in some, and they have a cheese spread in some. And those become gold. And if you got the jalapeno cheese spread, you were the man, and you could trade that for pretty much anyone's firstborn child. Like it was the best, it was the best flavor that you could hope to get for with the little biscuits that they would provide us in that. But man, I can't imagine doing that kind of a trek with that kind of meal prep, but let alone when you're vegan, because I know that there's certain constraints. There's just a lot of needs, whether it be supplemental or eating very specific foods when you're doing a vegan diet, just to make sure that you're getting your fill of everything. And when you're expending that much energy and nutrients on a daily basis, I'm sure that just made it that much harder doing that whole trek for as long as you did. Because I can only imagine that some days you just probably felt super depleted, and those dehydrated meals aren't exactly meant to like fill you up, right? You're not
right.
I'm so good right now.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I was very dedicated to the vegan cause, and I had been, when we got to the trip, I'd already been a vegan for 13 years, so I was definitely used to suffering on expeditions, but I did tell myself, if we get to a point where we really can't find vegan food, or I'm truly starving, like I will be mentally prepared to eat something different. But it didn't ever come to that, luckily. And I definitely had some bad stretches where I was like, oh, I'm so hungry, but always within a few days I could find something that made me feel all right. So me and the boys, we all brought 50 days worth of food, because that's how long we thought we would need to feed ourselves before we got into sort of regular villages and stuff. But I ended up bringing, I think, like 40 extra with me just in case. And so whenever we did have like a dry spell or couldn't find something, I could just cook up another dehydrated meal. But again, like you said, it's not the best kind of eating, but it was enough to get me through. Yeah.
Well, and the good part too is, like, at least you guys were floating, so it's not like you're packing out all of this, food, all these meals on your back. and having all that extra weight, right? So that helps at least with that kind of a weight management issue when you're hiking or doing anything, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Floating down a river definitely makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
When you guys were going down, I'm assuming, you would have to, set up every campsites every night as you're going down. Was this just like pick a spot and go, or was it again logistic where you're like, okay, there's a village here, there's a tribe here, we're going to try to go through it and pick specific spots?
Yeah, so in the whitewater sections, it was just more, paddle till we were tired or start to lose daylight and find a good spot to camp. And it was super remote in the right whitewater areas. We were in some like crazy canyons in the middle of the Andes, and so the camping was pretty nice in there. But then when we got to the flat water and again the red zone, yeah, there's definitely an idea of safety in numbers down there.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we had the local indigenous people there called the Ashaninka, and we had an Ashaninka guy coming with us in the motorized canoe. And so he would kind of, when we were near where he lived, he knew the places we could camp and where it was safe and where it wasn't. But as we got further down the river, he would just talk to the locals and they would give him advice on where to camp. But in those days, we were always staying in a village, and they would just let us camp on the beach, like in front of where their houses were and stuff. But it was definitely like, no, you do not go off and camp in the wilderness in these areas, because that's where you're most exposed. So you find a friendly village and camp there. And, I was really scared about this red zone because there had been 6 tourists that passed through in the 2 years prior to our expedition, and 2 of them got murdered and 1 more got shot, but he survived. And so, that's not good odds for us. So I was really nervous, but we got permission letters from the Ashaninka while we were in Lima before we started the expedition. And again, we had this local guy coming along in a motorized canoe, and we had nothing but awesome experiences. The people were super kind to us, and as soon as they saw our permission letters and realized, what we were doing, that we weren't any threat to them, they were super nice and like, oh yeah, camp here. Do you need food? Do you need beer? What do you need? And so they were really great to us and ended up being good experiences.
Yeah. And I spent, during my time in Peru, especially, I spent some time out there with some of the tribes where I'd gone, I think twice for a week at a time, I want to say it was. And I was really young. I wasn't even 10 years old, probably 10 or 11 years old when I did that. But spending that time out there and seeing, everything that they do and how they live and whatnot, and camping out there. It's definitely, aside from the people that you might have to worry about sometimes, you also have to worry about just the nature and nature getting you, because between the poisonous animals, snakes, all kinds of bugs, whatever you want to call it, there's a threat somewhere out there for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Especially from the bugs.
Oh yeah. I think when I was there, it was the first time I ever had ants mixed into my rice. It was part of what we were eating that day. And I wasn't sure if they were there on purpose or not, but, I ate it. And it was just extra protein that day.
Did they taste good?
I didn't really notice any flavor profile that they would have been giving off. I think, in Peru, they have a lot of different indigenous cuisines, right? So cuy or guinea pig is one of those. And a funny story, when I was there, I was in elementary school, and my teacher was an American woman who wanted to get a class pet. And so she went to the market in Lima and wanted to buy a guinea pig. And as they pulled it out, they were asking her questions. And then she sees the guy raise the cleaver that she was about to kill. She's like, wait, what are you doing? And he's like, well, I'm going to kill it for you. And she's like, no, I want it alive. And he looked at her like, what? Why do you want this alive right now? And they had no, like, it was just a foreign concept that she wanted a class pet out of this guinea pig. And that was the meal that they were going to have. And it was just, it was a funny to hear her say that and look at it in that way, especially after I'd already eaten guinea pig there. I didn't know while I lived there. So, for me, I didn't grow up with class pets. I had that, and that's what I knew. And so it was just
exactly. It's a good cultural exchange.
Oh yeah, huge one. I also remember when I was there with the tribes, them catching, spearing the piranhas in the water. And I think at my parents' house, I think I probably still have a little like stuffed piranha that was mounted, if you will. And those little bastards are vicious looking. I can't imagine getting eaten up by one of those things. But that's another one of those perilous dangers that live in that water.
What did your parents do? It sounds like you had a lot of cool experiences as a kid.
I did. They both worked for the government, and so they were
Okay.
what we moved from country to country, living in Suriname, which is up north of Brazil. Very much a jungle type of country, so there's nothing there. We lived in Suriname, I lived in Peru, I lived in Colombia, and I lived in Mexico.
Nice.
So I got to grow up in all those areas. Yeah, from just about 5 years old to right when I graduated high school at 18. I lived there, so got a lot of cool experiences going through there. And I even whitewatered, but I did that in Mexico.
All right.
Was it Mexico? Yes, I think it was Mexico when I did that whitewater rafting trip. Nothing like what you've done, I'm sure. But it was still, it was really fun. I did enjoy that. I can't imagine doing 25 days of it. Like I said, I got jacked up by a river here in Texas that is a lazy river, right? That takes 3 hours to go around. And there was they have these chutes that are there. And let's just say I got dragged down the wrong side of that chute and I got toppled over and bumped up a little bit. But, the only thing that really I lost that day was the beer that was in the cooler that I was dragging with me. So it wasn't that bad.
I was going to ask if it was like a cooler accident or something, but
yeah. I had been tied off to another raft, to another inner tube that had a cooler inside of it. And normally I'm a little bit more comfortable with that because I use it to try to control which direction I have to go. And I can push it in the right direction and have it be like an anchor point. And someone else I was floating with had grabbed onto that and used it to push themselves off of, which then shoved me in the wrong direction. And I went down a fairly fast, for a lazy river, fairly fast chute backwards. And that didn't play out very well for me. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you made it.
Yeah, I know, right? It was traumatic. I don't know if I'm going to be going back down that river. So you had mentioned earlier that it was that you've done a bunch of these expeditions, and I know you run an expedition company where you take people out on tours, right?
Yeah, that's right. I run Small World Adventures, and our main thing is taking people whitewater kayaking in Ecuador. So eastern side of the Andes, also Amazon basin kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I love Ecuador. It's beautiful. I went there a couple times as a kid, and I went to Quito, and it's a beautiful, beautiful country, beautiful area.
Yeah, it is.
With all of this, with all these different expeditions and treks, like I said, you have a lot of the experience and the determination, the perseverance to get through, especially like the long ones, like you said, 143 days. On those long stretches, right? You were talking a little bit about it earlier. The mental aspect of it, right? Of going through that, because it's not only the fatigue from not having enough food, maybe a little dehydration from being under the sun, but then you also have that mental fatigue aspect of it too, of just, damn it, this is boring, right? Or just like just trying to get on to the next day and knowing sometimes that, oh my God, I've only been out here for 40 days. I still have 3 more months to go. How does that weigh in, and how do you deal with that when you're in those situations?
Yeah, the Amazon was definitely a big lesson for me in the mental aspect of it. And, so physically speaking, Dawn and I were pretty well equipped for the Amazon. So in Ecuador, our season is like 120 days long, and we don't normally get a day off. So we normally kayak 120 days in a row. So we were kind of used to the endurance and stamina aspect from a physical standpoint. But then the third guy on our expedition, David Midgley, the expedition was actually his idea. And he is also a really good example of grit, because he's a brilliant computer programmer from London. And he was sort of having a midlife crisis, feeling like, I'm going to waste my whole life sitting behind a computer writing code. So he decided he needed one big adventure in his life. And he chose kayaking the Amazon because he read a statistic that more people had walked on the moon than had descended the Amazon from source to sea. And he was like, oh, that's so cool. That's the thing I'm going to do. But he had never kayaked before when he decided this. He had never gone camping. He was totally unathletic. And so he worked for an entire decade to build class 5 kayaking skills so he could do the whitewater to try to get in shape.
Mm-hmm.
And he really did an amazing job of dedicating himself to it, but he was still like physically speaking, the weak link on the trip. So Don and I kind of only had to keep up with him, if that makes sense. And I'm not trying to be mean to him. That's just the reality of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so physically, it wasn't that hard, and I felt really well prepared physically. And I didn't spend hardly any time preparing for the mental side of things. And it got me in a lot of trouble on the trip, and especially like around day 110. We had gotten to the point where there's basically no gradient left in the river. So, and it was constantly windy and always an upriver wind. So if we stopped kayaking even for 2 seconds, we'd get blown back up the river. And we really were having to work pretty hard to make downstream progress. And Midge is the nickname for David Midgley. So Midge kind of lost a lot of motivation at this point, and he was getting tired easily, and he decided he only wanted to paddle sort of minimal hours per day. And I was getting really, really frustrated with Midge, and always trying to ask him to paddle a little bit longer, paddle a little bit harder. And, I was getting anxious to finish the expedition, and the more and more ready to be done I got, the more slowly Midge was paddling. So there was like this huge disconnect happening, and I was having a really hard time accepting it. And, people often ask me, like, what do you look for in expedition partners? And it's like, on this expedition, we all had the goal of getting to the Atlantic Ocean. So that was good that our goals were in alignment with each other, but we all had very different approaches of how we were going to do it. So that definitely caused a lot of friction on the team. And I got super mad at Midge because he wasn't paddling fast enough. And it took me like 2 weeks of sort of wallowing in my own self-pity and being super angry to kind of get my perspective back, to change my own outlook, because no matter how hard I tried, I wasn't going to change Midge or his paddling regime or anything else about him. And like, I knew that I had to change something in my own brain, but it took me a really long time to be able to do that. But as soon as I just changed my outlook on the situation and felt lucky to be on the Amazon instead of trapped on the Amazon, it really was like night and day. And then it was like, okay, Midge, paddle as slowly as you want. I'm seeing cool things. I'm having amazing experiences. But it took so much work to get there out on the expedition that it was a real eye-opener for me. And now, like, any kind of challenge that I tackle in my life, of course, I still think about the physical aspect, but I spend so much more time like prepping my mindset so I don't fall into that kind of trap again.
Yeah. And I can only imagine. I hadn't even thought about that. About the idea that, in a sense, you are working as a team, even though you also have to get through the trek that you're going on, the expedition that you're going on. It's also partially a team effort that you're on, and I can imagine with someone. Now, granted, he had prepped for you said a decade, I believe, that he'd prepped to build up the skills and stamina and whatnot that you need. But yeah, that aspect of the teamwork that's still going to be involved, to complete this, and especially if he's, for lack of a better term, the weakest link, if you will, just being that perhaps less prepared, or just, he doesn't do it for a living, right? Like you have.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, again, not to disparage him in any way, because he still did an amazing thing. But I can see how that would be especially difficult to deal with if you're not quite prepared for it. And really, it's one of those things that it's hard to prepare for, right? There's no simulation or something that you can go do that's going to be 143 days. It's really a matter of doing it, but maintaining that mindset of getting through it and doing it together, and not losing sight of what that end goal is, right? Working as a team, trying to pump each other up.
Yeah, exactly.
To get to that next point. Real quick, Darcy, don't want to interrupt our conversation. Your video cut off. I'm not sure if that was on your side or if it's just the Wi-Fi or what. So yeah, so on the mental aspect, like I said, is the teamwork and whatnot that you guys got to get, into. I'm sure there's a rhythm that you all have to get into, and then maintaining that can be a little difficult, right? Maintaining that cohesion that everyone's kind of pushing at, and especially if you're a team that might not have, worked together for a long time, right? Like in the military, for instance, when any kind of elite operators or even just down to basic training, like when you're doing your evolutions in that training cycle, you're doing it building up a certain amount of teamwork so you can learn to work with these other individuals, pump each other up, and get through, persevere through the hardships that you're all going to share. And part of, getting through those hardships builds that team camaraderie as well and gets people going. But like I said, if you're not prepared for that, it's got to be a little bit of a trial by fire. And it kind of sounds like that's what you experienced there when you hit that, past the 100-day mark.
Yeah, for sure. And so the way that Don and I know Midge is because he started coming to Ecuador every winter to train with us so we could teach him to become an expert kayaker and survive the Class 5 whitewater. And the Class 5 rating is the hardest runnable whitewater. And sorry, I'm just getting a little distracted. Anyways, so we had worked with Midge quite a bit before, but it was always in a very different setting. We were the guides, he was the student, and we could go back to our own rooms every night after a day of kayaking, and we were, 2 weeks at a time, basically. So yeah, this intense 24-hour a day exposure to each other for 148 days was definitely one factor that we weren't used to. And another thing, since this is the FloState podcast, I'm sorry, I'm going to say his name wrong, but Csikszentmihalyi in his book talks so much about, to achieve flow state, to achieve happiness, you really have to change the contents of your consciousness. And obviously this is a really difficult thing to do, which I found out firsthand, but I was trying so hard to mold Midge to my schedule, come on, we had to change our plane tickets home 3 separate times because we kept missing our deadline. So, I was trying to make Midge conform to the deadline, to conform to my pace. And it just took me a really long time to realize, no, that's futile. If I'm going to change something in this situation, it's going to have to be me and how I look at this situation. And it was a huge struggle to get there. But once I did, it made everything so much more, his pace, his schedule became bearable, his eccentricities, I could laugh at them instead of get angry at them. And it was like I was living in an entirely different world, which was truly an amazing thing to experience.
Yeah. You had to, for lack of the pun, but you had to go with the flow, right?
You had to go with the flow. Exactly.
Yeah. You had to just, I guess, kind of embrace some of the chaos, embrace the suck, as I like to say, in certain aspects. And just work with what you have. And part of that, changing that mindset is huge. And it also helps with the other aspects, right? And on the teamwork aspect, on the mental perseverance for yourself, but also as a cohesive group, right? If there's all that friction and all that tension, it's going to make it so much harder to find that, there is a certain dynamic, like a group flow that you can get into. But if there's a lot of tension around it or fighting priorities over what you're trying to do, then you can kiss that goodbye. It's not gonna develop, and then it's gonna create more tension and make everything get a little bit harder, progressively harder as it keeps on building, unless it's really dealt with and tackled.
Yeah, exactly.
This just sounds like exactly what you experienced there. It's all these long treks, and it's interesting how you describe what his motivation was, what Midge's motivation was of the midlife crisis and everything. It seems like, going back to what you said, Csikszentmihalyi was this idea of finding that fulfillment and purpose, I guess. And it seems like that's something that, you've been lucky enough to find for over 13 years now, right? That you've been doing it. Was this trip a motivator for him to keep on doing it? Or was he like, I'm done, I hit my goal, I'm out?
He was absolutely like, I'm done. Yeah, he is a truly brilliant computer programmer, and he operates on a totally different wavelength than I do. And it was so interesting, you know, all along throughout his training, he kept saying like, I'm going to quit kayaking as soon as I complete the Amazon expedition. And we're like, no way, Midge. You know, most of all the kayakers that we've encountered in our lives, you know, maybe 5 or 10% of them get good enough to be class 5 kayakers, because it's hard. You know, it's a ton of
Oh
work,
yeah.
it's a ton of dedication, and you know, it's scary when you're in these remote canyons and sort of
Hmm.
fighting for your life, as a lot of people feel when they're in these situations. And he actually achieved that, and we're like, you've got to, this has to have spawned some kind of love of the sport and seeing these places. And he's like, nope, nope, when as soon as the Amazon's done, I'm done. And he has mostly stuck to that word. He met his now wife through his kayaking club in London, and
Oh, great.
she made him go kayaking once since the Amazon expedition, but that's been the
And
only
that's
time.
it.
Yep. It's pretty amazing.
What about for you in your case? Is this just spurred on a drive to want to go and do crazier expeditions and longer treks? Or are you like, I'm good, just keto every 2 year or every year?
Well, you know, it's been a really interesting journey for me in that respect, because what I talk a lot about in the book is leading up to this expedition. I was 35 when we started the expedition, and you know, everyone thought it was pretty cool that I was kayaking for fun and for work when I was in my 20s. But as it got into my 30s, everyone started asking me, you know, when are you going to settle down, and don't you want
Mm,
security for your future? You know, these kinds of questions. When was
hmm.
I going to stop playing around and get more normal, basically? And you know, I didn't really want those things, but so many people were confronting me with this that I thought, well, maybe something is wrong with me and I should try to do this. And so I kind of went into the Amazon expedition thinking, well, this is a humongous expedition, and surely this will satisfy my desires for this kind of thing, and then I can go move on and be normal like everyone thinks I should be. And but basically the complete opposite happened. You know, I got to we got to the Atlantic Ocean, and it wasn't like this flood of contentment and satisfaction. It was kind of the opposite feeling. It was like, oh, what are we going to do tomorrow? You know, it was
Hmm.
more of an empty feeling than a contented feeling. And so that, having that sort of situation made me realize it's, you know, goals are super important, and that's what motivates me and drives me. But it's more the chasing the goal that I
Hmm.
like, that I find happiness in. And completing the goal is always in a way a little bit of a letdown,
Yep.
but the chasing process is what feels really good to me. And so yeah, the Amazon has definitely, it's changed the way I look at things, because I definitely had the mindset of like, okay, if I kayak, you know, all the hardest rivers in North America and some in Asia, then I'll be satisfied with my kayaking career and I can move on. And I don't look at it like that anymore. You know, I continually want to do stuff like this. I want to keep myself in peak physical condition for kayaking as much as I possibly can. And I definitely do have other interests outside of it. And writing the book was like a whole different kind of adventure, which was really awesome. But yeah, it's fueled the fire more than anything.
No, I totally understand that. And I can see how the last hurrah, if you will, was not that for you because one of those things about getting into flow or just doing something that you find fulfilling is not about reaching that mountaintop, right? It's about the travel up the mountain. It's about the journey that you're taking to get there and all the things that are involved in it. And there's other elements, of course, but from a general standpoint, that's a big marker indicator of having that state of mind. A lot of people, when they talk about flow states, it ends up being about individual instances, right? Like if you're going down a category 5, whitewater or something, and you're in that zone, right, where time slows down and you're firing on all cylinders. You got a good challenge to skill ratio. Like there's that aspect of flow, and a lot of what I've talked about on the podcast thus far was There's been some of that, but then more recently I've been focusing on the mental aspect, because there's also a flow to life, right? From that's not so task oriented, but just in your life oriented. And that's a lot what Mihai talks about in his book about, the happiest people in the world are, goat herders and such, because they find this general fulfillment in what they're doing. And a lot of times there's a little bit of pain. It's tough what they do, but there's a genuine fulfillment out of it that I think a lot of people who have, to use your words, grown up, right, who've stopped playing, lack in their life. Because now their mountain or their expedition, what have you, that they're trying to reach their goal is having that fat 401k and retiring, and then what, right? They get to that point and it's like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah, exactly.
And they don't really have a point to go to. And I think that's a weird thing, because we're almost all kind of conditioned to, want that. Like you said, everyone around you has told you that. Even my little sister, for one time, she was trying to figure out like what she was going to do. And I tried to tell her, I'm like, don't think of it like this is what I have to do for the rest of my life. I'm like, you can have 17 different careers. You don't have to become the best or the most advanced position in each career. You can do a bunch of different things until you find that what you want to do and what you're good at, or what you've had that fulfillment from. But you don't have to just pigeonhole yourself into one thing and just do that because that's the safe route, right? Because that'll also lead to a life that's very unfulfilling. And I think that it sounds, it's mentally, we think that that's a good life because, we're going to have savings. We won't have a lot of worries. We don't have to worry about food or a roof over our head or, a car, whatever it is, right? But the bigger thing that we do have to worry about, and that people are seeing more and more, and I actually talked about in the last episode, was you have to worry about your mental health, your anxiety, your depression. The highest suicide rate in the United States is middle-aged white men. From 42 to 59, I want to say, all the way up to 65. The numbers keep going, but I think 42 to 45 was the highest rate. 49 was the next highest, and then all the way up to like 65, I want to say, was the highest rate of suicide in the United States. And it's no wonder, because people aren't doing anything that's fulfilling. They're not doing something that's challenging, and they're feeling that reward that you get from doing the challenging thing. And then in your case, you're able to go out and find the next expedition, right? Find the next summit, the next river you're going to go, and that's an amazing benefit for our mental health and for our quality of life, more so than having a nice fat retirement. Now, hopefully you'll still have that, right? That's the idea behind it, right? You still want to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's not going well in that regard so far, but
well, maybe the book will help spur that on, and you don't have to worry about it, right? We'll get the rights signed away for a good Hollywood movie, and
it is. I just read a statistic recently that the self-help industry in the United States is like $11 billion per year industry. And to me, that's definitely a sign of like, what are we doing wrong that, where everybody's constantly searching for some fix, so something is broken. And even my pattern of chasing rivers as a mean to my fulfillment, there is a little bit of danger in that too. One of the things that spoke to me most in Csikszentmihalyi's book, which you just mentioned, is the people who can find happiness and find contentedness in sort of what he called like the mundane details of daily living. I mean, that is a real special skill there, and something to work towards for all of us, I think.
I think that that's definitely what people need to work towards, but there's a fine line between being content with the mundane that you're in, right? And so, I have my regular day job, I got all that stuff, and I'm doing stuff like this and to change my day-to-day mundaneness, right? Like one of the keys I forgot who I heard say this, but they were talking about one of the things in life is find a way to make the thing you don't want to do enjoyable, right?
Yeah.
And so once you can make that enjoyable, then you want to do it. And while that's a good mentality to have, I think that you lose something about that, about yourself almost as well, when you're trying to adapt what you find enjoyable, and you're trying to make this thing, like, it's one thing if like if I go out hiking or out on a hunt or out fishing or something, I might hate half of that time, right? I might hate sucking wind going up a mountain. I might hate trekking out to the lake. There's certain parts about that I won't like, that are not why I'm there necessarily, but they build up to the ultimate moment, right?
Right.
Whereas doing a spreadsheet, for instance, is not going to give me that same feeling. There's no amount of me. It's like, oh, I can't wait to dive into Excel today. Like that's not happening. And I wouldn't want to. Some people have that though, and
right,
awesome
exactly.
for them.
Yeah,
it's not happening with me.
Yeah. I mean, that is an important part of his theory, is to find challenge and find joy. And so,
Yep.
if your spreadsheets aren't doing it for you, you got to figure out what is. But to not have to, for me, to not have to feel like I have to kayak a Class 5 river to find this will be an important step at some point in my life.
Oh, most certainly. And I think that you'll end up finding that. You've already doing your teaching. You have your book now. I'm sure that this will continue to develop into other things that probably are, I guess, synonymous with what you're already doing. They're extensions of what you're doing.
Right.
They'll allow you to continue to develop it and grow it. There's no one way to do life, if you will, right? There's always people coming up with new businesses, new ways for them to support themselves and such. And one thing that seems like it's the easy part, right?
Yeah.
The harder part is finding what you genuinely have that fulfillment and enjoyment in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where, someone like yourself is extremely, I say lucky, but it's not luck, right? It was 13 years and counting of hard work and doing what you love and perseverance and having that grit, right? Because a lot of what FloState is having a challenge to skill ratio. And some people, if that challenge gets overloaded, if their skill gets overloaded by the challenge, they will back out, right? They'll quit. That anxiety will kick in, too much stress. They'll put too much weight on their shoulders about the goals or what have you. I'm not saying, for instance, with Midge, I'm not saying that's what happened with him, but it could very well be that 143-day trek was like, all right, that's it. I'm done. That was way too much. I don't need that much challenge in my life. Because again, it's not just the challenge of the kayaking itself, but it's the mental aspect. It's being out there for that long. It's dealing with all the variables, and that can overwhelm someone really easily. Yeah,
absolutely.
And so, but in your case, it doesn't seem like that's the case, right? It seems like it kind of fueled your fire a little bit. It might have got you wanting to keep on going on those expeditions. And I think your role in doing that and showing people that is incredibly important, because like you said, one of the reasons why you want to do it is to go out and show, that you can go out there and kick ass, you can dominate this river, and you can, break the concept that people have of what they can do and who can do these things. And, you're the proof, you're the living example of what can be accomplished and when you put your mind to it and, put the work on.
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of the biggest thing. And I think relatable to anyone, regardless of what it is they're trying to do. It's like, we always have people telling us we can't or maybe shouldn't do things, whether it's kayak the Amazon or quit your job to pursue your own dream, whatever it is. There's people that, I think a lot of it stems from their own fears, or they want to protect you. They don't want you to fail. They don't want to see you get hurt. They don't want to see you make what they think might be a bad decision for your safety and your security. And I totally understand that. I understand where they're coming from, but it's really important not to let other people's fears get imprinted on you. If you've got something in your mind, believing in yourself is the number one thing you can do, although sometimes that's incredibly challenging, but just trying to figure out a way to sustain that belief despite all the feedback you might be getting is going to be the thing that carries you through more than anything.
Yeah, you hear a lot of the motivational people or just anyone that's going out and doing what you're doing kind of echo this same sentiment. Like, you can't listen to those people that are telling you no and this and that. And they are, they're oftentimes the loudest voice or the largest group of voices. You're often not going to get a lot of people that are like, yeah, you should definitely go do the Amazon thing.
Right.
Like, that sounds like a great idea. Don't get killed in the red zone. Bye. Like, like they're not the loudest voices. And so that's why, people like you are really important in showing this and in championing that decision. And again, to go back to what I was telling my sister, you can go and do, like Midge is a perfect example. You can go and do your 9 to 5 for however long, train up, and then go out and do this. And if it's not for you afterwards, then that's fine. But you did it. I guarantee, number one, he tells that story a lot, I bet, about what he did, right? There is a personal goal that he's accomplished and a sense of satisfaction that I'm sure that he has. There's probably a lot of mental strength that came from that as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I'm sure a lot of people, especially like in his programming or IT world, were probably like, what are you doing, man?
Oh,
like, and he's accomplished this humongous task, and as have you and Dawn as well. Like, it's amazing. And there's so for all the naysayers out there, shut up. You guys aren't right.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think I think everyone will agree, no matter how hard it is to take the plunge, go against the grain and do what you want to do. Even if you do it and you fail, I think everyone will be so much happier that they at least gave it a shot. You don't want to come to the end of your life thinking, oh, I really wish I would have tried this or that. For me, like, I definitely fail all the time when I'm trying new stuff, and expeditions don't always go as I think they will or had planned. But I get a little bummed out in the instance, but I've never, ever regretted trying and failing. Much more of my regrets come from, oh, I didn't go for it. And now I'm going to wonder for the rest of my life what would have happened if I did.
Yeah, you don't want to be stuck with that. That is, I posted a quote the other day that says that everyone has to choose their own regrets. Yeah. It's something that we all have to do, right? We all have to, or sorry, not have to, we all get to choose our own regrets, right?
Yes.
But it's something that we actually have to choose. No one else is making those choices for us. We all have to make that decision. And, and we're doing it every single day, every minute, every second. You're choosing what you're going to end up regretting. And I think the goal should be to make that list, as short as possible. And that'll mean going against the grain and living life according to how you want to live it. And I think more and more people are embracing it.
I agree with you. Yeah.
But which is awesome. It's definitely one of the most important things. So your book right now is Amazon Woman, and that is available, I'm assuming, at Amazon.com. If not, they missed a great marketing opportunity.
Yes, if people are looking for it on Amazon, though, you have to type in Amazon Woman and Darcy. Otherwise, you get some strange search results. Oh,
well, okay, kids, don't do that. Type in Amazon Woman and Darcy, or the full name of the book is, Amazon Woman, Facing Fears, Chasing Dreams, and a Quest to Kayak the World.
The world's largest river.
Oh, the world's largest, so you cut it off. That's a long title.
It is a long title.
Is there an audiobook version, or did you just do the print version so far?
There is audiobook. Yep. So it's hardback, Audible has it, and Kindle has it as well.
Who read the audio version? Did you?
I did not. No, a woman named Laura, and I'm spacing on her last name, but she did an awesome job. Yeah. Awesome. So she's a professional narrator. Oh,
okay. So I've always wondered about like how many takes and stuff, because I know when I read, like, aside from the fact that I can, like, I'll read a whole paragraph and not know what I just read, and I have to go back and reread it, but I know I'm stumbling through words and stuff. And it's kind of like that when you're in high school and you get called out to read in the class,
Yeah.
and you're like, no, damn it, I didn't want this. And all the spotlights on you. No, that's awesome. So it's available on Amazon, pretty much anywhere. If you guys Google it, Amazon Woman Facing Fears, Chasing Dreams, and a quest to, what was it again?
Kayak,
Quest
the
to kayak, the
world's
longest
largest
river. Yep, the longest river from source to sea. Darcy, and say your last name for me again, because I told you this is gonna happen. It's weird to say.
I know, the last name is really hard. The last name is Gaechter.
Gaechter. It's Gaechter.
Yeah.
And it'll be in the notes for everyone too.
If people want, they can go to amazonwoman.net, and that's my website. So you can buy the book there, or check out some videos we have online, and just learn more about it in general.
Awesome. And if they want to follow you on social media, what would be I guess you have your Instagram, right?
Instagram, yep, Darcy Gaechter.
Is that your most active social media place?
It is, yeah.
It is? Okay, great. Right, so that's at Darcy Gaechter. And the last thing, your expedition company. What's the name of that one?
Small World Adventures.
Small World Adventures, and that's the one that goes to Ecuador and you're taking people there, or is it all over the place?
Primarily Ecuador. We also do Grand Canyon trips in the U.S. and Middle Fork salmon in Idaho. We've done a couple trips to Bhutan and Kenya, but we spend the whole winter in Ecuador, and that's like our main operation.
Winter, our winter or their winter?
North American winter.
North American
We're
winter.
normally there like middle of October till first week of March.
Awesome. For anyone that hasn't been to Ecuador but you're interested in this, I highly recommend it, even if it's just for the trip. Of going to Ecuador and seeing that country. It's a beautiful country. I had very fond memories of being there when I was younger. So yeah, that's amazing. Definitely look up Darcy. Go on one of these expeditions. If you have any kind of inkling of doing it, like we said earlier, right? You have to choose your own regrets. Don't let this be one of them. Take her up on it. Let her go show you what's up. Maybe go on an Amazon trek if you're up for it. Get a little crazy. That's what we're here for. Well, Darcy, it was great speaking with you. I told you I was only going to keep you for about an hour, so we're right there. I really appreciate it, and I would love to talk with you again, see what your next ventures are going to be, and continue to help inspire people to go out there and do it and live that great, fulfilling life. Because I think what you did is amazing. I think what Midge did was amazing, and I'm pretty sure, I'm positive actually, that you're going to end up inspiring a lot more people to go out and do that. So.
I certainly hope so. And thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It was fun chatting with you. And I hope people listening will be inspired to try whatever they want to try. Get motivated, get out there.
No, most definitely. I'm sure they will. Enjoy your trip in West Virginia as you trek around the United States. I hope that goes great. Stay safe. And I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
All right. All right, so I just stopped recording it. Like I said, I'm going to put it up. I might, if I'm lucky enough, I'll get all of the audio portion completed today and loaded today. The video takes me a little bit longer just because I have to watch the entire thing and edit out, all the stuff that I want to edit out and just change the sounds a little bit. But no, that was amazing, Darcy. Again, I really do appreciate it. It was great talking with you. I think your story's awesome. I love is that your logo? I noticed it was on your shirt too.
Yeah, that is our company logo right there.
Yeah, the INSO.
Yeah.
It's we share that on that was the original logo just for the podcast, and then I superimposed it on top of the famous Japanese tsunami picture.
Oh yeah, yep.
And so if you look you'll see it on the podcast. When the podcast comes out, you'll see the thumbnail is that picture of that Japanese tsunami, and where it says flow, the O is a Japanese INSO. That
cool.
circle is the same thing.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I'm really sorry about the video thing. I thought
no
it
worries.
was just going to be audio.
Hey, no worries. If you don't want me to use the video, that's fine. I don't have to. It's up to you.
Well, the first part, there was such bright light coming in, and I kept fidgeting with it because I was trying to get it right.
Oh, no.
So I think it might be kind of crappy, the first half.
I'm telling you, there's a weird phenomenon, and I have to explain this to some people. Like, my wife likes to do a lot of cooking videos, and I have to explain this to her too. It's like, there's a authenticity or a realness about when you have to, when you drop the camera, for instance.
Yeah.
Like but some people will be like, oh, okay, like it's not like you're like perfect or perfectly staged or anything like that. And people kind of, oddly enough, like that a little bit more than like a perfectly well lit like CBS studio where everything's just right. Like they like seeing that you're a real person. And I didn't see any glare on my side.
Okay.
So I wouldn't worry about that. And like I said, I think it was maybe 5 minutes. That's just your thumbnail.
Yeah.
And so it's not a big deal. I think that it's going to be perfect. Grant, I've only put up 1 minute, 2 video episodes. This is something that I wasn't doing before, just because I didn't really want to mess with video. It just takes a lot longer to do. I like being able to just take a raw podcast, make it sound good, and just post it. But I'm trying to see what else I can grow this into and really see what I can do on the YouTube aspect of it. So I'm going to try to keep on growing that using yours. And the next one that I'm hoping to do, like I said, I was going to do like a series on grit. So the next guy I'm talking to in the same light is a guy named Darcy. I actually have a call with him in about an hour. And he's an Iditarod racer. He won the last 3 years in a row. And so I figured that you guys kind of back to back would kind of be a cool little series to talk about grit and perseverance, going through hard situations and, doing what some people would say is messing around, right? He's running around with dogs all day. You're kayaking down rivers, and I'm here stuck with these goddamn Excel spreadsheets. So you guys have it better than me in a lot of aspects. But no, it's great talking to you again. I'd love to talk with you if you ever need any more promotion about the book. I'm going to put it all on Instagram. It's my main social media. I have others, but I'm not active. Like I had a Twitter, but I don't know why I don't like it.
I don't like Twitter either.
So I'll post about this. Obviously, there's no requirement or anything for you to post about it. If you want to, by all means, do share it.
Oh yeah, I will for sure.
And we'll hopefully get some more eyeballs on you, on your company, and on the book, and hopefully I can contribute a little bit in some way to it.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate the help, and thanks for your time and thinking of me.
No, it was my pleasure. I really did have a great time talking with you.
All right. Yeah, me too.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your trip.
All right. Thanks. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.